they are the one who feel the pinch because at their level, right, realistically, looking at the prices now, it's quite scary, because...
Hi, welcome to another episode of Property in 20 brought to you by Ceekay Soh District. And today's episode, we are talking about the HDB market. So the big question is that is our HDB market in trouble? Because I believe that in the last few years, many of us have noticed that the property prices for HDB market have been going up higher, and there seems to be no signs of it slowing down. And even recent times, we do see that there are $1 million HDBs that are in areas like Tiong Bahru fetching 1.5 million and so on, whereby it's like a 1973 jumbo flat. So the big question is that, wow, is this sustainable? Is this truly affordable for people? And do we see that the market is going to crash anytime soon? Right. So today I have one of my associates who is Gabriel. So welcome, Gabriel. Say hi to everybody.
Hi everyone.
Okay, good. All right, so finally we have you on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's talk about the HDB market. All right. So let's go straight and direct. As we know in the last few years, HDB market, like right now, is at its all-time high, right? Compared to the last peak in 2013, a good 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So even though this year, pricing has been rising, even it's like at a slightly slower pace, do you think that HDB price will continue to pick up? Or is it about time that it should start dropping?
I think, in my opinion, not say whatsoever, but then I feel that the government is actually trying to do something. That's why they came up with the HFE policy, so that the buyers need to have this valid document before they actually purchase to go on to purchase their HDB flat. But to ask ourselves whether the price will continue to rise, it really depends on the supply and demand, basically, on how much Singapore is pushing out their BTO. That's one. And another thing is the prices in the resale market. Yeah. So to answer the question whether the prices will continue to go up, it really depends on the BTO now. So as you can see, I think in the past where you see BTO, we had a bit of short supply because of the COVID. So the construction delay was that foreigners couldn't come back to Singapore to do the labor manual work. So that's one. So currently now, yes, you can see a lot of government trying to push out the BTO supply, the backlog as you say.
Yeah. Just now you mentioned with the pandemic and so on, right?
Yes.
So actually recently also there is a news that there is a new variant as well for COVID. So I'm not sure whether that will become a widespread problem. But I think that aside, right now if we look at the HDB market, you also mentioned a bit about HFE, right?
Yes,
so on the ground, what is the issue with HFE now?
It's taking too long.
Too long.
Buyers are supposed to get it within their 21 days period, but then some of them are facing, more than 20. I think some of them waited 1 month already, but then they still haven't have any news from HDB.
Right.
So it's in a way delaying the process, I would say.
Okay, makes sense.
So delaying the process.
Okay. Yeah. So now, in terms of the supply as well, we noticed that the government is trying to clear the backlog.
Yes, correct.
Right. So rightfully in the next few years, there should be more supply.
Correct.
Right. So, but right now, when we look at the market, somehow or rather, even though there are so-called more news about supply, the prices isn't slowing down. So what exactly is going on with this situation now?
I think there is still, I wouldn't say, it's not as bad as it's during the COVID period, whereby you see the HDB prices really skyrocketed. But if you compare now and COVID period, now is much more, I would say, stable in the sense that there are not so much COV in the market.
Okay.
Unless you're talking about those like $1 million HDB.
Right.
So as compared to COVID period, there will be a lot of, buyers who paid COV quite often, which actually resulted in the HDB prices to actually shoot up. So that's one. So to really know, I think nobody have the crystal ball to say that, maybe the market will, will go up, the price will go up, the price will go down. But what we can see is actually the supply, which is what we know that during COVID, there was a undersupply in HDB. And to put it even worse, that the delay in construction also prolonged the completion of the HDB supply. So that's one of the reasons why that during that point of time, the prices actually shoot up. Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward then, like what will happen to the supply situation in Singapore now?
I think right now, our government is trying to complete the current backlog on our BTO, whereby you can see like in news, they try to, share manpower, then they, try to bring more subcontractors to actually finish up the late construction costs whatsoever. So that is one measures they are trying to, push up the supply to the population, whereby there won't be any more undersupply, whereby the buyers, don't have a choice to pay that X amount of money in certain areas. Yeah, that's one. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is interesting because like when I study the HDB market, right? Like in the next few years, there is still a shortage of supply in terms of the completed BTOs. Right, so normally when we look at the resale market, we want to make sure we look at the figures of the completed properties 5 years ago.
Yeah, correct.
Right, because of the 5 years MOB.
Yeah,
so let's say for example this year, we must look at those that completed in 2018.
Yes, correct.
Right. So now if I fast forward, right, like the supply chart shows that by 2025 is where the market is at its all-time low in terms of supply. So after 2025, then there will be a lot more supply, and then that is where probably, like you say, right, when the supply comes back up, maybe the price will soften.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, but from now until 2025, of course, we still have 2 full years to go. So which is pretty scary, like in the next 2 years, if the supply continues to be low, then the big question is that will we be able to sustain the price? So I'm not sure what are your thoughts on this, but to me, I have a slight hunch that this has got to do with election. Right, so do you think that this will actually affect HDB prices?
Wow, actually, I really don't know. I really don't know, because the thing is, it's very subjective, you see. It also depends on the buyer behavior also. Correct or not? So if you, let's say if due to election and suddenly prices shoot up, people will feel a bit like, if let's say you are a buyer, you just say, okay lah, then I wait after election, then I will buy.
I don't think it's about waiting for after election. I think it's more of who to vote.
Yeah,
because it will affect their voting confidence, ma.
Yes, you can say that. Yeah, you can say that also. But this one is a very gray area, I would say, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to. I'll look at past facts, let's say the volume, everything, then the prices, everything. But if you ask me, due to yes, political stability would definitely affect the price. But how much will it affect? That is one question we should ask ourselves. How much will it affect? So this one, I don't think it'll be a very hard question to answer, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, so just now you talk about let's look back in the history, right? Okay, so let's do that for a bit now. The reason why I bring this up is because back in 2011, okay, if you look at the HDB chart, 2011 was a time whereby the price shot up crazy, sky high.
Yeah.
And that year there was the general elections in 2011. Okay, so what the government did was that they promised that HDB is supposed to be affordable for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So they spent 2 years to come up with the MSR Framework.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's why 2013 the HDB market went down.
Correct.
And it went down for a full 7 years before COVID happened. Right.
Yes.
So now, fast forward here, of course, very soon we have the president election. And then soon also in another year or two, we'll re-elect the ministers as well.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So it's a very delicate situation whereby if, HDB housing, the prices are not being taken care of, then potentially the opposition parties will gain more votes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just drawing parallels to 2011. Yeah. So if that happens, then could it be possible that in the next few years, our pricing will be a bit potentially softer because of election?
If you... I mean, if let's say people want to have how can I say it? If you put it that way, okay, let's say we all don't know anything, okay? Let's say we all don't know anything. If the government is trying to win votes by just bringing down the price, then I would, in my opinion, I think that is what people want. So there might be a chance that they have this thought in their back of their head. So whether they will do it or whether they won't do it, we might not know. The kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think on the ground, if let's say there's a lot of ill sentiments because of the rising prices, then it's very easy for them to choose not to vote for the government.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard truth. It's a hard truth, right? I know it's not comfortable talking about all this, but I think we are here to talk about the hard truth because, like, I feel that in Singapore, generally, everything is all about, making sure that people are happy.
Happy, yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I think this is something that a lot of people have been complaining about. Yeah, that on the ground, people feel like, why are HDB flats so expensive now?
Yeah.
Right? But again, at the same time, we are not here to criticize the government, right? But it's just more of that today, property prices have to go up and down.
Yes.
Right? If the price don't go up, people can't upgrade, people cannot go to condos, right? Or people don't get the opportunity to cash out when they have profits. So naturally, the price must go up, but it's just that however what goes up cannot go up forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, it will also reach a stage whereby it's unsustainable.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is the key function that the government is trying to ensure to make sure that the ecosystem doesn't collapse. But at the same time, I think politically, if we really look back in 2011, this is something that I do see a parallel.
In past history.
Yeah, so like you said, maybe it may or may not happen. But which is why we are here to discuss and debate whether do we think it will happen.
Yeah.
Right? We are not here to represent the government or whatever. It's just to see what potentially may happen.
But looking at the rate that is going right now, if you look at the news like right now, you see like, I think recently we had $1.5 million transacted at Tiong Bahru.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So coming back to this question, right? I would say generally people, I think especially for the younger generation, young, like around my age, 20, 29.
Okay, we're all young.
Yeah, all young. Okay, those that just started working lah.
Okay.
I mean, to be more specific.
Because so young.
Sorry?
You're that young. You just started working.
No, as in like those as in turning like 24, 25, that kind of thing. Like they just graduate or maybe they just finish poly or whatsoever, finish army and they, go into the working world. They are the one who feel the pinch because at their level, right, realistically, looking at the prices now, it's quite scary, because if you look at the down payment of how much you need to pay for to down pay their CPF whatsoever, their cash whatsoever, at their level, they won't be able to afford. So this is definitely a real concern that they will, right? I mean, if let's say the government were to come in, right, these are some real concerns that the government should really be looking at.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think in one of our previous episodes with Shannon, we did discuss about this because like the Gen Zs, the younger generation, they are facing a lot of struggles. So since we talked about the jumbo flat, that was sold for 1.5 million, I think it's also quite crazy because it was a 1973 flat, but clearly not very young. So for a property of that kind of age, to achieve this kind of pricing, then in our mind we'll be like thinking, wow, like how can this be sustainable for people who want to buy better locations? Because when this transaction is out, many others will want to follow and try and also push the sell above 1 million. I mean, 1 million flats are nothing new anymore, but it's just becoming more and more commonplace. And it makes it look like for the younger generation, it's out of their league to match up.
Yes, correct.
Right? It's just more of like the downgraders or the 40, 50, years old kind of clients who have the cash and CPF to afford for this kind of properties. So the younger generation are being left behind. Right? So when it comes to this, like, what do you think can be better managed or better done for them?
Wow. Actually, if you ask me, in my opinion, I feel that somehow this can't really be managed because end of the day, right, the seller, their mindset is they want to push the market. They want to test the market. So even if they test the market, if let's say, the younger generation, they But anyway, I mean, I don't think the younger generation can afford also not because they cannot afford, but because if you look at the balance list, they also need to fulfill the CPF criteria whereby the CPF withdrawal limit, whereby the balance list plus the age of the borrower need to be, more than 95 years old.
Yeah, which means they cannot buy any flat that's too old.
Too old. So looking at the demographics, these sellers are attracting those that are like what you said, the private, they want to retire kind of thing. So to them, that you would just try to put it at a price whereby they think like, okay lah, we see how it goes. Whether they can afford or cannot afford, I won't know. But never mind, at least I put it out in the market. Then so happened, some buyer came. Yeah, of course, the renovation also plays a part. So they come to the area, wow, this is really what I want. This is what I desire. Mm-hmm. So looking at the price, looking at the condition, looking at the location, then the buyer will think, okay, you know what? This is my retirement home. I just, pay for. But of course, if you look at another perspective, right, it is a HDB product. So transacting it at 1.5 million for a HDB of a balance list of 49 years, it's a bit scary, I mean, honestly.
Yeah,
and it's a price tag whereby people would, jaw drop, the kind of thing. So yes, it's something that is very, I would say, not so. The number of this sort of transactions happening is actually very minor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair point.
So to say that, to be scared of selling it at, for a HDB going up to 1 million, I would say at now our current present time, I won't think any forum would actually transact 1 million unless there is some specific attributes to that property.
Yeah, let's say, like super prime location, super new, super good reno.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Yes.
So something that you brought up that, make me think and realize that it's a paradox though. Right, because you mentioned that, for example, for the younger generation, they cannot buy property that's too old. Right? So the price tag doesn't matter to them, right?
Yeah,
because
correct.
this 1/1,000,000 to them anyway, the property is too old for them, so no need to think about it.
Yes.
Okay, true. Then now here comes the paradox though, is that means there are only choices, there's only two other choices. One is they go for BTO sales of balance flat, which they can afford, but they may not be able to get because of the balance number.
Yes, correct.
Then, because of that, right, then the next option will be resale market. But resale market, if they cannot buy something too old, they must buy something younger, newer.
Yes.
Guess what? It's also not cheap.
Yes.
Right? It's like also maybe a 5-room flat is like 800-900K, that kind.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So they're stuck with properties that is a little bit old but not too old, but at the same time not super profitable kind lah.
Yes.
That's a paradox, right? It's like then what can they buy to really make money? Unless they just keep trying BTO, try for years until they finally get balloted law.
Yeah.
Right? That is the unfortunate truth. I think that it's a problem that a lot of people are facing right now, that because of this paradox, the young people are always stuck in this loop.
Yes.
Keep trying BTO, cannot go to resale, but resale buy those that are like neither here nor there, not very old, not very young kind. Don't know whether can make money or not. I think that is the biggest pain for all these young people.
But because end of the day, the government policy is to make HDB affordable. But of course, it's not affordable. I mean, looking at 1.5 million and everybody like affordable man, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then again, I think, like what you said, the consumer's mind and the policymakers, right, there's a bit of disparity.
Right? Yeah.
Because to them, it's like, it's affordable housing. But to the younger generation, it's like, how can I upgrade? After I buy this one, then next time when I move, how? Can I make money or not? That kind of thing. So these are real questions that sometimes the honest hard truth is that it takes planning. It takes planning, it takes portfolio structuring, then your cash outlay kind of thing. But then again, it's not for everybody also.
Yep.
Yeah. So ultimately, the HDB's policy is to provide a roof over your head.
True.
So this is something that cannot be undone, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair point.
But back to the 1.5 million, I would say that I feel it's just like a 1 out of 1,000, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair point. I think one thing that I remember the Minister Chan Chun Sing, because he did a dialogue session during the convention a few months back, he did mention that when it comes to affordability, that is something for everyone.
Yeah.
But what he's trying to tell you is that you just buy whatever your budget allows you to, basically.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So everything actually boils down back to personal in terms of your income, in terms of your savings. Unfortunately, the truth is beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a harsh reality,
Yeah,
right?
correct,
Like when you only have this much budget, your income is only this much, you cannot complain. Right? So the only answer to solve this problem is work hard, improve yourself, make more money.
Yeah.
And then when you have more money, it's easier, right? There's a lot more options, there's a lot more opportunities for you
out
to,
there.
buy something profitable. I think that is a straight up answer, but it's just that some people just don't want to face the truth.
Yeah, correct.
So I think that's why this topic actually, when you talk about sustainability, to me is always about, like, in the first place, what are you able to put on the table in terms of your, income wise, your savings wise. Yeah, it's important. I think people need to recognize that they themselves play a big part, right?
On the road, yeah.
Yeah, to take responsibility over their affordability as well. Yeah. So at the same time also, I think in recent years, there are reports of like BDO contractors going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then that resulted in major delays for construction as well. And I think this also plays a part. There's two parts to this. One is the delay results in dropping of supply, which push price up. Right, that's one problem.
Correct.
But the second bigger problem is that now it's more and more common for contractors to go bankrupt. So I'm just thinking, is the government not protecting this contractor enough? Because from what I know, they don't pay the contractors first until everything is done. Yeah, then all these contractors got cash flow issue, especially because of COVID. Yeah, what's your take on this?
Wow. I think this is something whereby I think I'm pretty sure the government did their job by doing background check on all those contractors and their portfolios. But sometimes, like what you said, like due to crisis, things happens. So I think what's more important is that how the government actually step up to actually solve this problem. I think one of the occurrence happened was in 2001 during the pandemic, whereby I think
2021,
yeah, correct. Bukit Panjang, I think Senja, and also Bukit Batok. There's this contractor, I think Great Earth Construction.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they filed for bankruptcy. But looking into deeper, right, actually what the government did was they actually did pull some construction companies from other BTOs to ramp up the construction the timeline. Which I think, okay, I mean, not to comment so much because we don't really know what went wrong during the bankruptcy. But on the side note, as a consumer, I would say that it is something done. There is some, push factor whereby the government actually, make use of what resources they have to actually, push up the BTO completion date earlier.
Yeah.
But of course, there is still some whereby, like, I think there's one in Punggol Cove also.
Yep.
I think that also had quite a long delay. I think about 1 year.
Yeah,
so
quite a lot.
I think that was something that they couldn't rectify quickly. So this is something I think is beyond our control. Even, how much we can, complain, the kind of thing. But that is the ripple effect. That's where buyers who are in need of a house, they will then look into the resale market. And then they'll look at the prices whereby, okay, you know what? Since I really need a house, this is within my affordability. Let's go for it, the kind of thing. So that's also one reason why it resulted in the price going up. So, yeah. So, back to the question, whether is it why they became bankrupt. So, this is something that I really don't know. I really cannot answer.
Okay, fair point. I think in terms of this, right, okay, what I really see is, because for a lot of BTO contractors, I mean, okay, nobody, foresee that there will be a big pandemic like this, right?
Correct.
And it's not just for contractors. I think there's a lot of business in general. They run into cash flow problems. And I think this is where pandemic taught all these businesses in every industry a big lesson, whereby today you got to look after the cash flow and you cannot take it for granted that, your business is going to be there all the time. And that, like, nothing weird will happen, So pandemic happened in a way whereby they push up the cost of construction, right? Construction materials, everything became more expensive. And then for all the contractors, suddenly whatever they budgeted for became like over budget.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that is also part of the main reason why they actually went bankrupt, because they couldn't pay off all this, like higher construction costs. So, but with that being said, right, then I personally foresee that maybe in the future there might be a bit more collaboration between contractors.
Yes.
Yeah, because when we look at even developers, you start to see a lot more joint ventures now.
Yes, correct.
Right, they are joining forces to buy land together. So I think this is something that maybe, if any contractors, if you're listening out there, maybe they have to consider joining forces to protect each other from
interests.
Because it doesn't make sense that like today, I leave you to rot and die and so on, I take on more. But the question is that, do you have the ability to take on more by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the cost of hiring, the cost of managing all the construction, whatever, I think it makes more sense for construction firms to start joining forces so as to keep each other alive in the industry.
In a way to survive throughout the project, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
I think there's one way the government also will actually implement. I feel like in the future, I mean, if let's say this works, right, then it works, you know what I mean? Then it also solves the problem whereby there will be a BTO delay. So, in other words, I would say that actually doing the joint venture kind of strategy, I think it makes sense. Yeah, it could be one of a solution next time.
Yep. So, maybe last question for you before we end of the show.
Okay.
Right. As a HDB owner yourself, what is the greatest pain that you're going through right now?
Wow. Actually, I BTO. So I'm waiting for my BTO, which is going to complete next year. So I also anticipating, whether got delay, no delay, that kind of thing. Because the thing is, on HDB website, I think they stated that it will be completed by 2024 Q3. Then, some people say, no lah, Q2. Then you're like, no lah. Mistake. So now you are like at the anticipating moment, But on let's say my day-to-day life, let's say how it affects me is that, sorry lah to my wife lah, but staying in laws it's not for everybody lah. It's not for everybody lah. It's not easy because different lifestyle, you see.
Yeah.
Then your method and how you do things are so very different.
Okay.
So when you say you're in laws, right? Especially let's say you are a bit personal lah, a bit. Let's say you are the wife you have to play two roles. One is being a wife to your husband. Okay. Another is being
a daughter
to your parents.
Yep.
So I seen it. So it's not easy.
Yeah, okay? It's definitely not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. Of course. So I would definitely want my own place. Yeah,
to ease her of all this pressure, right? Of having to deal
with
all
this. Me lah. It's to ease me.
Yeah, I think you give her a lot of headache, is it?
We got a lot of disagreement. Okay lah, we give each other a headache lah, but also we got a lot of because our lifestyle is a bit different. You know what I mean or not? So sometimes people don't really understand the kind of thing. Like, why you do this, why you do that, the kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so we got our own kind of way of life, which brings down to the point lah. If let's say you ask me why, in the market, people, even though they got the option to stay with their parents, but they won't want because they want to get their own place. Because let's say if they have kids, or maybe planning to have kids, they will want their own privacy, their own, space. It's just to breathe, you know what I mean? Just do your own things your own way.
100% agree. That's why I also move out.
Yeah, so that's one of the pain points that you ask me really is the waiting. The waiting really kills you. Because month after month after month, then delay again, then later month after month after month, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so by the time you get your kids already, you're a bit a bit sian already, that kind of thing.
So actually this also highlights exactly why there is a high demand for HDB flats nowadays because of our generation, right? We plays a part whereby we don't want to stay with our parents anymore.
Yeah.
So even without the population growing, there is extra demand for housing already.
Yes.
Because at first, last time in the past, it's 3 generations in one house.
One house, yes.
But now all start to move out already, so immediately there is extra demand for housing on the spot already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this itself is a paradox.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is a demographic problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So I also think that because of this, it's actually also not fair to, people like to blame it on the government that, what are you doing? How come HDB price becomes so high? Sometimes we are the one who actually caused it to happen. Right? Because of our desire to move out that created this demand for housing.
We want our own space, you see. So it's a bit, that's where you have the thought of, okay, I want to buy my own place.
Yeah,
that's where you go into the market and wow, so expensive.
So I think this is where we have to take ownership that this is our the demographic behavior from us that resulted in the market shifting this way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to sum it up, I think today's episode we really, really covered like so many things, and we went through a lot of sensitive topics as well. Right, but we are talking about all this openly because we believe that today the HDB market is of a big concern to a lot of you out there. And I believe that we want to present a very fair and objective views. All right. So we are not pro-government or anti-government, but we're just here to openly discuss about what is good, what is not so good, how are people feeling on the ground, what we feel here on the ground, and to really decipher what is going on with the HDB market. Right. So with that being said, I think for me personally, I still feel like I have full faith, right, in what the government has planned. It's not easy for any government of any country anyway to deal with housing. It's always one of the most pressing concerns for any government in the world. And with the way how things are going, I believe that we are still on track. Like at least now we see the prices stabilizing and so on. But I think the biggest thing that I really wish to bring forth to all our listeners and viewers here is that end of the day, just do your part as well. Right, to make sure that you really take good care of yourself in terms of your income, your affordability, all right, and everything will fall into place because there is always something for everybody. So let's continue to work hard. Let's continue to make more money together so that, in the future, we don't have to worry so much. Because property prices, if you look at it, sooner or later, it will go up even more anyway, right? Even if the market cools down in the next few years, I believe 5 years later, 10 years later, we will come back to this topic again about what HDB price went up again. I think that is inevitable. So since we know it's inevitable, why not let's do something about it and let's, make it work for ourselves and for our loved ones. Right, so with that being said, thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you for being on the show. Okay, and this will be the end of this episode of Property in 20. And at the same time, this is also the very last episode for this current season. All right, we are planning for a new season coming up soon, so stay tuned for our brand new season of Property in 20 next time. But till then, I'll see you around. Thanks for tuning in to Property in 20, brought to you by Ceekay Soh District. Bye-bye.